Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Chair Lawrence Immel. I'm going to now call this meeting to order. Welcome to the April 22nd, 2026 regular meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission. If you'll please all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Ms. Vasquez, can you please call the roll?
Chair ML,
Present.
Vice Chair Selm,
Here.
Commissioner Guetta,
Here.
Commissioner Weichel,
Here.
and Commissioner Callahan is absent.
Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Can you please make the public comments announcement at this time?
This is a time and place for public comments. Registration for public comments is available for those wishing to address the Traffic Commission regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for specific agenda items shall be called and heard during that specific item. All remarks should be addressed to the Traffic Commission as a whole. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the Traffic Commission unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city engineer for administrative follow-up. No individuals have requested to speak on this item, and pursuant to Traffic Commission standards, public comment speakers are allowed 3 minutes, and also no written statements have been submitted for this item. Also, please silence all cell phones during the meeting, and please remember to mute your microphones when you are not speaking.
Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Since we have no public speakers, we can move along in the agenda to item number 5, which is our summary notes from our February 25th, 2026 meeting. Do any of the commissioners have any comments on the summary notes? Okay, no comments. Moving right along to item number 6, which is the engineer's reports. Before we hear the engineer's reports, I would just like to clarify the Traffic Commission's role for these items. These are non-action items, which means that the commission will not be making any recommendations on these items necessarily, nor will we be taking any type of vote on these items. These are purely informational, and they are these reports are being given to the commission to facilitate public outreach and for informational purposes. So with that being said, can we have Public Works Director Nader Haidari present the first report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Imbel, and good evening, Commissioners. This is our annual information report to the Traffic Commission on the vehicle and pedestrian counts at all of the approved contracted city school crossings throughout the community. Some brief background on this item. The City Council approved the first crossing guard location in 1964, shortly after the city's incorporation, and the city has been managing and funding the program ever since. The state of California has established minimum crossing guard standards that are used by most agencies, districts, and cities that need to be met to consider a location for a crossing guard placement. Since 1999, the city has used its own internal standards for placement of guards, which are modeled after the state standards, but with far more generous and easier qualifying thresholds. This program has been adaptable over the years, with locations added or removed based on the actual needs of the public and changes in transportation patterns. The internal policy standard was most recently updated in 2023, and this is the 3rd year of implementation of that policy. Also, most recently, the labor services for the program were contracted out to a third-party firm, ACMS, starting in January of this year. Here's the overview of the current program, which has crossing guards stationed at 14 intersections citywide, located at 13 different CVUSD schools, comprised of 9 elementary schools and 5 middle schools, with the one at Sycamore being a combined elementary middle school campus. Most schools have 1 crossing location, but the Sycamore location has 2. Redwood also has a second one that it shares with Acacia. The map also shows the 6 additional locations that we counted this year based on requests that were received. Those are lettered on this. The numbered ones are 1 through 14, and then there's the lettered ones A through F were the additional locations that were counted. As I alluded to previously, in February 2023, the City Council adopted a newly revised and updated crossing guard policy based on extensive input from the Commission as well as the public. This new policy, which took effect during the 23-24 school year, has clear and objective standards for crossing guard placement, which are more generous than the statewide standards that are used by most other agencies. This is primarily done with relaxed or lowered minimum thresholds for the number of vehicles and pedestrians that are needed to qualify, which in many cases is half of what the state standards normally require. This objective standards such as this one help ensure resources are deployed appropriately and the decisions are applied fairly. The process for conducting the annual counts is listed on this slide, with which begins with the annual field counts in every spring of the vehicles and pedestrians at the locations. This is conducted by a professional engineering firm. The results are compared against the city's policy to determine if each location meets the minimum criteria. Staff then brings the report as an information item to the Traffic Commission as a venue to share the information and collect public input, which is where we are tonight, before we make any changes over the summer for the following school year. We are also bringing this item before you tonight 1 month sooner than we did last year and 2 months sooner than we did a couple of years ago. There's a baseline, as I mentioned, a number of school-age pedestrians and vehicle movements that cross over that intersection that are needed to qualify each type of intersection type. The locations must meet the pedestrian and vehicle counts in both the AM and the PM to qualify. And any pedestrian count of less than 10 disqualifies that location from qualifying that particular year. But as you may recall, the policy has a 2 consecutive year rule that needs to be met before any locations are considered for removal from the program. This is a key point to note. The city's policy maintains that locations do not qualify until they do not meet the requirements for 2 consecutive years. These annual counts that we perform are done in coordination with the published school bell schedules, which do modify and change a little bit every year, and other efforts to help maximize pedestrian vehicle counts, such as not counting on Mondays and Fridays, and avoiding inclement weather and major holidays, as well as any field trip days and other events that the various schools have. The policy also has 4 additional criteria that can be used to consider a location for qualification for a guard. Each of these alternatives is designed and inserted into the policy to lower the minimum thresholds if certain special criteria were met. This year, 4 locations were qualified directly as a result of the alternative criteria that was included in the policy under, in this particular case this year, under alternative number 1. This year's counts were completed and verified on April 15th, just last week. 12 of the 14 locations, which we'll go over shortly, meet the city's standards. 2 of the 14, however, do not. One of those locations has not met the requirements for 2 years in a row, which is Conejo Elementary. However, the other location that did not meet this year's the counts, Acacia Redwood, will continue to be staffed next year due to the 2-year rule. And in addition to all of those, 1 additional location is being added back to the program, which is the Sycamore location at Villa Rio and Villa Las Brisas. That one has requalified for the program this year after having a couple of years in a row of not meeting the standards. Here's the list and the details of the results from the 2026 counts. This is the 14 locations that were counted. The 12 that have sufficient counts are shown in black, and then the 2 that did not meet the counts for this particular year are shown in red. As I mentioned, the Conejo, which has the asterisks on it, that is the one campus that has multiple years of not meeting the counts, and also has not met the counts 3 of the past 4 years. As mentioned, Acacia and Redwood will continue at Gainsborough and Dover, will continue to be staffed next year, despite not meeting the standards. One more additional note on the Conejo, that's there is an all-way stop at that intersection, and there's short single-lane crossings, which makes it one of the easier crossings of all of the campuses. And as I alluded to earlier, although it's being removed from the 26-27 school year, it can be added back to the program based on a single year of qualifying counts in the future. The results this year are very similar to the past few years' counts, approximately the same number of locations qualifying. I should note that only half of these 14 locations would qualify for a crossing guard if the city was using the state standards, which most agencies use, which means 7 locations have qualified due to the city's more generous standards, 4 of which, as I mentioned earlier, are as a result of the alternative number 1 pathway. One of them is that the site number 1 is due to the 2-year rule, and there's also 2 more just due to the lower thresholds that we have, such as the 20 pedestrians versus 40 that the state standards require. So this shows that the city's policy is being effective in helping qualify more locations. We also counted 6 additional locations this year that had been requested, and here they are before you. 5 of the 6 do not meet the requirements. However, Site E at Villa Rio and Villa Las Brisas and Dos Vientos does meet the standards and therefore is being added back to the program. This location was an existing location before last year, so this demonstrates how it's easier to add a location back to the program versus discontinuing them. just a couple of closing notes. The results are very similar to recent years. One location is being added to the program and one is being discontinued. So there will be a net of continuing of 14 locations going forward, the same as last year. And CVUSD, I should also note, CVUSD still maintains the ability or option to add any additional locations that they wish to staff. In the meantime, staff will keep promoting walking to school via our robust public outreach campaign, our comprehensive walktoschoolto.org website, with all of the bike and safety tips and walk and encouragement of walk materials to help residents mobilize and walk to school. We also continue to make key infrastructure and engineering improvements citywide, such as crosswalks, sidewalks, more bike lanes, and many of the other features that are included in the recently adopted ATP. And the program has, as I mentioned earlier, the program has expanded and contracted since its inception, and locations will continue to be added or removed based on the actual field counts in order to match the ever-evolving transportation patterns and needs of the community. With that, thank you very much. The recommendations are in the staff report, and staff is happy to receive any feedback or questions.
All right, thank you very much for the report, Mr. Haydari. Does the commission have any questions for staff? Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for giving us some more time to kind of review, and also giving the parents and families more time to review the Crossing Guard program. I do have a couple of questions, and the first question is, how do you account for school population? Because I remember us going over that last year, but I don't remember how you account for school population in terms of the formula that you use. Because obviously, schools, the larger schools like Sycamore, Lang, Los Cerritos, Colina, they're going to have larger school populations as opposed to a smaller elementary school like Conejo Elementary. So how does that factor into your formula?
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, this is quite loud. I think the modified requirement, which is the 20 pedestrians, which is half of what the state usually requires, is a bar in which accommodates for that. None of the campuses in the city have only 50 or 100 students. All of the ones we're talking about are in the hundreds. So the requirement that only 20 students need to use the crosswalk to qualify for a crossing guard, we feel is adequate. It doesn't need to be lowered any further.
So there really isn't a formula for a disparity between 251 students in a school versus like 1,300.
That is correct.
Okay. The school that I'm kind of concerned about is Conejo Academy. Have you reached out to the school to find out whether or not what their thought process is with having the school crossing guard eliminated for next year?
Yeah, we reached out to the district prior to even doing the counts, knowing that Conejo didn't meet the required counts last year, and that they were potentially subject to be discontinued if they were to again not have the requisite counts this particular year. So we did a lot of communication with the school district ahead of time on that one to help encourage the campus to be aware that if they want to maintain their crossing guard, they're going to need to make sure they have people walking to school. So that was ahead of time. After the report has been completed, we have shared the information with the school district, and they have the contacts and channels and communication, avenues with their parents, some of which don't live nearby. It's not a geographic thing necessarily. So we have definitely been in robust communication with the school district. We also meet with them quarterly, so we've been reviewing this information with them in real time.
So if the school wanted to oppose this decision of having it removed, having a crossing guard removed, they can go to city council at the date that you're presenting. Is that correct? Would that be the would that be the best route to go?
No, this item does not go before the city council. The policy as written, the decision is based on the objective data reviewed by the Public Works Director, then is presented to the Traffic Commission tonight as an information item.
So this whole this does not go to city council,
That is correct.
but it did go to city council last year.
The city council last year elected to hear the item because of the number of changes that were taking place last year. They requested upon themselves to have the item agendized.
So what would be the process for Conejo Elementary or Conejo Academy if they want to review that item to make sure that there's some alternative? What would be the process be?
We would encourage them to work with the school district to implement a guard if they feel that they need guards that are beyond what the city policy is accommodating.
But the school district would have to pay for that. Is
That's
that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you looked into the fact that maybe there are other issues that are happening in the nation that might lower the walking ability for certain populations, especially in vulnerable populations?
Yeah, that's a good question. That level of nuance isn't in the policy. However, looking at Conejo, 3 of the past 4 years, they've also not met the requirements, so it's not necessarily. And the 2-year rule that's part of the policy helps accommodate any or offset any short-term individual year impacts that may befall a particular campus.
But you can't detract from what's going on in the country, right? That might prohibit parents from allowing their kids to walk to school, especially if it's a Title I and it's a vulnerable population.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't ignore that.
No, definitely not. However, looking at then that campus, again, 3 of the past 4 years not having the required counts leads to the fact that this is not an anomaly for that campus. It's not a 1-year issue for that campus.
Okay, I have other questions, but I'll let other members go through.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to follow up real quickly on Commissioner Guerra's question regarding review of a decision to close a crossing guard location. So the resolution that was adopted by the City Council does include a review procedure, right? And specifically, I'm looking at
an appeal process.
Yeah, there is an appeal process, which actually would begin, I believe, 14 days from the date of this meeting, right?
Yes.
So it's not as if, and I understand this item comes before us just as a purely informational item, not for us to take any action on. But if somebody disagrees with the decision regarding the closure, that there is an avenue for them to appeal that to the City Council.
Yeah, that is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Absent of the appeal, my comments earlier, hold. However, there is an appeal process. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure. Ms. Vasquez, do we have a speaker on this item?
Yes, we have one virtual speaker and then the one in-house speaker for this item.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. But before we take additional questions from commissioners for staff, I'd like to call the speakers. And so may we have the virtual speaker first?
Okay, so the first speaker, Flor Ramos. What you're going to do is you're going to click unmute and state your name and city for the record. You will be reminded when you have 1 minute remaining, and again when your time to speak is up. Flor, can you hear us? Flor? Flor, click unmute. Can you hear us, Ms. Ramos? Okay, I see you're interacting. There should be an unmute in the middle of your screen. If you click that, you should be able to speak. Can you hear us? You want to come back to her?
Yeah,
Chair?
that's probably a good
Okay,
idea.
Flora, we'll try again.
So hopefully we can get Ms. Ramos back online. But in the meantime, we have another speaker on this item, Jennifer Betts. Ms. Betts, if you want to take the podium there.
Ms. Betts, just to let you know how the timer is going to work. When I start your time, the green light will come on. When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light, and when your time to speak is up. And just please state your name and residence for the record before you start. Right.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Betts. I am a Dos Vientos resident and a Sycamore Canyon parent. Thank you to Public Works and the consulting for adding Via Rio and Via Las Brisas as a crossing guard location for 2026 and 27 at a traffic light. It's a meaningful step and our community is grateful for it. However, Via Grande and Calle del Prado remain exposed and too dangerous. Today, Senior Traffic Engineer Jim Michiko wrote and explained why the intersection of Via Las Brisas and Calle del Prado, where 2 people were killed in May 2025, will not be receiving a marked crosswalk. His reasons: the speed limit on Via Las Brisas is too high, and road curvature at Calle del Prado reduces visibility. Those are the exact conditions that traffic signals exist to resolve. A signal requires vehicles to stop. There are 3 new laws in 2026 in the state of California that provide Thousand Oaks opportunities like lowering the speed limit to make this area safer for the community. The city's position cannot be that these intersections are just simply too dangerous to mark, too dangerous to guard, and not dangerous enough to warrant a signal. Those 3 positions cannot all be true at the same time. I want to draw the Commission's specific attention to Via Grande and Via Las Brisas, just feet from the fatality site. This intersection serves 2 large residential pockets that enter and exit Las Brisas from both sides every single day. Families, commuters, and children walking to school and to the park all cross here with no markings, no signal, and no guard. My neighborhood is refusing to let their children cross a road where people have died. A low count after a fatality is evidence of a problem, not evidence of its absence. I'm asking the Commission to recommend 3 things. First, complete signal warrant analyses at Via Grande and at Calle del Prado, referencing MUTCD warrants 5 and 7. Second, include both intersections in the spring 2027 crossing guard count. And third, pair the new 2026-27 school year guard at Via Rio with speed reduction and engineering along the corridor. Via Grande is my neighborhood's top priority, and we would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Betts. Ms. Vasquez, were we able to get Ms. Ramos?
Let's try again. Ms. Ramos, you're going to click unmute and state your name and city of residence for the record. You'll be reminded again when you have 1 minute remaining, and again when your time to speak is up. Ms. Ramos, can you hear us? Flor, can you hear us?
Hello? Hello?
Hello. Hi, we can hear you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and
Yes, I
start.
apologize. I believe I clicked the wrong topic,
No
so we
worries.
can skip me for now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Ramos. She's on the next item. She's on this one.
Okay, thank you. Does the Commission have any questions of our speaker, Ms. Betts? No questions.
I think public safety is one of the foundational elements of community, and our children are one of our most precious resources. I have children at Kalina. They use the crosswalk, and it's a vital part of their safety daily, twice daily. So I empathize with what you're saying, and I know that the city uses a very careful process in how they assess cross guards and all these crossings. So I think that it would be a good idea at least take another look at it, or look at the data again and present it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Selm? Well, let me do this. Does staff have any response to the comments that were made by Ms. Betts?
Yes, we could, we have a couple comments.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I want to address those now. Ms. Betts indicated that she does have a desire to have a crossing point at the intersection at Via Las Brisas at Calle del Prado. It's a uncontrolled intersection. Currently, there's no markings to indicate crossing across Via Las Brisas. And I did share with her in the past that we do have a marked crosswalk policy. It's a policy that helps us determine, is it a good idea to put a marked crossing across a certain location to help guide pedestrians at a certain location. There's a common belief that just because you put paint in the road to tell a pedestrian this is a crossing point does not necessarily make it a safe crossing. The guidelines take into consideration certain factors that we know would make it a more successful crossing point versus placing someone in a road that's not desirable to have them there. The situation here along Via Las Brisas is the road. The speed is, posted speed is 45 miles an hour, which means cars are traveling, up to 50 miles an hour. Our policy currently is to have marked crosswalks on roads where what we call the 85th percentile speed, no more than 40 miles an hour. So if we're posting a marked crosswalk along a road that's 10 above the desired speed, that's something that we feel very uncomfortable doing. In addition, here it's at a middle of a curve, and so if we place a pedestrian in that roadway where we know there's a line of sight issue, that's another issue where we feel very uncomfortable encouraging a pedestrian to cross. Crossing guard would not be able to mitigate those types of factors. So, we can continue conversations with Ms. Betts on this item. We know she doesn't agree with our evaluation and our perspective on how marked crosswalks are to be used, but she did send an email to us prior to the meeting asking us to have a prior or continued conversation, so we're going to do that with her. We'll let her know. I think in the past we also reached out to her to have some meetings, but we have not heard back yet, so hopefully we can touch base with her and discuss all these and flesh out, the reasons why we follow certain rules and regulations, especially the state has set certain standards on why you want to put a signal in and what those thresholds should be. They're based on generally high volume of traffic, because signals are there as a tool to regulate right away at real busy intersections. Not just because, you think that this is a good location to cross the street. There's other factors involved. The collision that she talked about, a fatality, we know that was an exceptional situation. I believe that's also, there's criminal investigation on that driver because the person was driving well in excess of the posted speed limit. So we know that's something that's...
pedestrian, yeah.
Yeah, and that was outside, I believe, the school hours, no pedestrians present. But, those are the type of things hopefully we can share with her our perspective, because we didn't want to exchange long emails on this whole thing, because there's a deeper discussion and deeper explanation involved in all these factors. We would prefer that any pedestrians that are crossing Via Las Brisas, they use the controlled intersections. There's the one at Via Rio at Via Las Brisas, where the crossing guard counts this year show that it does qualify. So next school year, there will be a crossing guard at that location. So we're hoping that because that has signal control plus a crossing guard, that's a preferred location for crossings.
A quick question. On that fatality, was it car to car, pedestrian? Could you give us a little bit of detail on that?
Can I just interrupt, Chair? I just want to remind everyone that this is not an agendized intersection discussion. We are here for the crossing guard program, and so if we could just hold off on any discussion about those issues till they're on the agenda.
Got it.
Thank you.
And just to add a little bit more to it, thank you, Joe, to Jim's comments. This is the reason also you don't see marked crosswalks on like Canaan and Westlake Boulevard, et cetera, because they, that specifically because they don't meet the city council's crosswalk policy on these those type of roadways. And it's always the trade-off between safety and convenience. It is, as Jim mentioned earlier, it's preferable or safer for those pedestrians to cross at the existing signalized intersections as opposed to trying to go mid-block somewhere else, on an uncontrolled intersection. I guess I'll leave it at that. There's other topics, but we'll make sure we communicate directly with the resident and go over their concerns.
Okay, well, I appreciate the comments, Mr. Haydari and Mr. Mashiko. Just one follow-up question, though. Has there been an analysis as to whether this particular location meets warrants for a signalization?
Yeah, I think we did do a count, but at that location to see whether or not it qualifies for a signal. Somewhere in the past. I don't know if it was very recent, but again, I don't know if we're really should go into that level of detail because the issue right now is on crossing guards.
Sure, and not to get off on a tangent or anything, or get off on an unagendized item, but sometimes whether there's a crossing guard or there's a signal, those issues kind of go hand in hand, right? Because you do have crossing guards in a sense, not taking the place of a signal, but in some sense performing the same function, which is to allow people to cross a roadway. So in any event, I just, on behalf of the commission, I think we appreciate the comments and also appreciate the continued engagement with Ms. Betts on the issue, because it's certainly one that's gotten a lot of attention.
Okay, and I do have one other comment to make as far as the intersection of Via Las Brisas and Via Grande. That intersection was evaluated as part of this recent evaluation by the traffic team that went out there and did the counts. And that location does not qualify for a crossing guard. Counts were less than 10 pedestrians during the morning and less than 10 during the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I think that's all the speakers we have on this particular issue. Do the commissioners have any further questions of staff on this item? Yes. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so at this point, now that there's no further questions, we can open it up for discussion amongst ourselves. Anybody have any additional comments about this item?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Commissioner
disappointed.
Guerra.
I'm title another school that was in a vulnerable population to Ladera, and now it's Conejo Elementary. And I think that the school population does factor in. I mean, if it's only 251 students, so.
Ms. Guerra, your mic, just remember to turn it on.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioners. Vice Chair Selm.
Thank you. We talked a little bit in your presentation, Mr. Haydari, about how the city differs from the state regulations. Can you talk a little bit about the count to Commissioner Guerra's point about percentages, like, to me, that just makes sense. Like, it's comparing apples and oranges here with just a blanket number of 20. Does the state do that as well? Do they have a number, and what is that number?
Yes, the state's number is 40. So for required number of pedestrians, so the city's is obviously half of that number, which is a much lower floor. We haven't seen any other, as we did our different surveys as we were revising the policy in 2023. We didn't see any other agency that had anything easier to meet than this number that the city carries, which is 20. So
okay. What about, and I know that we're not supposed to be talking with staff and we're discussing amongst ourselves, but if this policy was ever opened in the future, I appreciate the carve-outs that are there for like speed and road width, and like I think that all makes a lot of sense. I think there's something missing though, to Commissioner Guerra's point about we're facing a situation that is kind of unprecedented in keeping people indoors, and we've been here before, like with COVID, right? And I think that sometimes these policies can be a little rigid in responding to current crises, and so it might be worth revisiting that in the future of like having an option that's up to the discretion of the public works director, or something to that effect.
Okay, Commissioner Weichel.
I was studying Los Feliz, and in 2012 there was a paving project that gained support through the city, the Traffic Commission, a variety, even TOPD, in regards to walkability to that school. So it makes me think that enrollments can ebb and flow. I mean, I noticed in the program here, the presentation, that you added a school that was previously not, that was dropped. So I mean, do you see in the ebbs and flows of enrollment an increasing need for crossing guards over the course of time, and sometimes a phase out?
Yes, certainly. That's how the program is structured, to be able to absorb or contract or expand as the needs may be. Obviously, the school district has had some declining enrollment over the past 10 or 20 years. And that's part of the reason why, and also because of their school of choice program, people are going to schools in other areas of the city that aren't their neighborhood school. So they're going to a magnet school or some other school in a different part of town, which obviously also affects walkability. If they'd like to go to a school 4 miles away, you're probably not going to be walking to that school. So there are definitely a myriad of factors, but I will say that there is we have, with our new contracted model, the school district has every option to add additional crossing guards if they feel that the ones that the city, even though the city's doing twice as much as we normally would because of our more generous standard, we're going to have 14 crossing guard locations instead of what would normally be 7. But the CVOSD has the right, and it's baked into the MUTCD and the state municipal traffic codes that allow school districts to also do crossing guards if necessary, and we've structured our contract with our service provider to be able to add additional locations if the school district so chooses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haydari. Appreciate the comments. And to Commissioner Guerra's point, I don't think there's anybody on this commission that likes the thought of a crossing guard being taken away, particularly from an elementary school. And, the thought of, even one child standing on a street corner without a crossing guard trying to get to school is really something that, will turn your heart. And on the commission, we wrestled with this policy for months, and it was like 3 meetings, and it was fairly contentious. And as I sit here today, I still think that we wound up with the very best policy that we could, that included as many alternative pathways to maintaining a crossing guard as we could possibly have. And unfortunately, there's just some objective standards that at some point need to be established, because if you don't have those objective criteria, then it's kind of chaotic, right? I mean, then everybody at every school is going to want a crossing guard, regardless of what the student population is or how many people are crossing or how many vehicles are passing that school. And so it was something that was needed. The policy is really just a creature of necessity. But look, there's an appeal process that we spoke to staff about earlier, and also the schools to a certain degree have an amount of control over whether they can maintain a crossing guard by communicating with the students' parents and really being vocal about how important it is to get kids to walk and get your crossing guard back. There is a pathway to get the crossing guard back. So, I'm hopeful that can happen for schools, even if they fall off the list. And we just saw that it did happen for one school. So,
But that school, just to interject, and I don't want to labor the point, that school has a larger population, and I think that the larger population schools will always have an advantage just by the numbers. And I think to not look at that as a factor skews the numbers to the larger schools, like Lang, like Sycamore, like just the larger schools in the district. So then if you have a smaller population, you're going to be at risk of losing crossing guards. So obviously that, from my point of view, that should have been a factor, but here we are where we are. And I appreciate all of the work that you've done. The fact that you are presenting it earlier, thank you so much. And we have speakers, and thank you for coming here. And it's not a perfect situation, but I'm disappointed. But we are where we are.
all right. So this is, as we know, this is just an information item. So there's no vote that we need to take on this item, and there's no further action that needs to be taken on this item. I think this has been a good conversation, and I think staff appreciates the comments that we've given them. But now we're going to move on to item 6B on the agenda. If we could please have Senior Engineer Jim Mashiko give us the engineer's report.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Chair Emmel. I'll be presenting an overview of the proposed updates to the city's preferential permit parking program ordinances. The changes are largely focused on the proposed transition from physical to digital permits, which will benefit residents, the police department, and administrative functions within the city. This is an informational item, and we're looking for your feedback as well as public input. To give you a little background, the preferential permit parking program was created to help residents maintain access to on-street parking in neighborhoods affected by outside parking demand. This often includes areas near schools, businesses, parks, and open space where non-residents tend to park heavily. The program is codified in the municipal code, and it's been in place since the mid-'80s. Over the years, it has grown to include several neighborhoods throughout the city. Here's a map showing the 5 distinct parking districts, each noted with a red star. These districts serve over 800 households in total and include areas around Thousand Oaks High School, Newbury Park High School, Los Robles Medical Center, Potrero Road Open Space, and the Conejo Creek neighborhood. Each district has unique parking challenges, but all share the common goal of protecting on-street parking access for residents. Here's an example of how the permit parking district in Newbury Park High School is successfully limiting the number of school vehicles from overtaking the adjacent neighborhood. The image on the left, you'll notice bumper-to-bumper parking along Lesser Drive with the school to the south, yet very little on-street parking on the adjacent residential streets to the north. Similarly, in the image to the right, there's bumper-to-bumper parking along both sides of Reno Road, with the school to the east yet the neighborhood to the west has very little on-street parking. Currently, residents receive physical placards to hang on the rearview mirror. Each district permit has a unique design and an individual number. The system requires in-person visits to City Hall, manual data entry, and physical enforcement by visually checking the numbers on each tag. While the system works, it's labor-intensive for both residents, staff, and it creates a number of opportunities for errors and outdated information. We're proposing to update the program by transitioning to a fully digital license plate-based permit system. Residents would register online from home, and the system would update instantly for the police department. Enforcement officers would use handheld license plate readers to verify permits in real time, and this eliminates the need for physical placards entirely. The transition brings several benefits. For residents, it means no more hang tags, no more trips to City Hall, and the ability to update vehicle information instantly from any device. For the police department, it improves enforcement efficiency and accuracy. And for city operations, it reduces paperwork, printing needs, and manual processing. Overall, it's a cleaner, faster, and more reliable for everyone involved. We are aware of a number of Southern California agencies who are using digital parking permits based on license plates and have successful programs. Among the agencies nearby using these digital permits include the City of Ventura and the City of Pasadena. The first step to updating the program is to update all applicable ordinance sections to provide flexibility not only to adopt a digital license plate-based permit system, but to allow future flexibility to utilize technological advances to improve the user experience, reduce administrative burdens, and improve efficiencies. There's at least 4 sections that we are evaluating. In addition to the flexibility to adopt a digital system, we're recommending a few ordinance updates. Number 1, increasing the petition threshold for creating new districts from 60% to 75%, aligning with other traffic programs like the speed hump policy. Number 2, providing authority to the city engineer to adjust district boundaries when needed without returning to city council. We're still requiring council approval for any brand new districts. And number 3, implementing minor wording improvements to increase clarity in the municipal code. To ensure transparency, more than 800 letters were mailed last week to residents within all 5 existing districts, and the copy of the letter was also in your agenda packet. Here's a copy of the letter that was mailed. Residents were invited to submit comments by email, phone, or in person at tonight's meeting. All feedback we receive will be considered in the next draft of the ordinance. Copies of feedback received have been provided to the Commission prior to this meeting. After collecting all public feedback, staff will prepare a revised ordinance for City Council consideration on May 19th. And if approved, the digital permit system will launch on August 1st. Prior to implementation, we'll conduct a targeted outreach and education campaign to help residents understand the new system. Permit fees remain unchanged for the first year of the rollout, and long-term fees will be evaluated in a 2027 citywide user fee study. So with that, the recommendation is in the staff report. This concludes the presentation. We're available for questions and welcome any feedback from the Commission and the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mashiko. I understand that we have 2 public speakers on this item. Is that
Correct, Chair.
okay? Can we have the first public speaker in no particular order?
You want the virtual?
Yeah. Why
or
don't we do that?
virtual? Okay. Okay, so our first speaker will be Flor Ramos. Flor, remember to click unmute and state your name and city of residence for the record. You'll be reminded when you have 1 minute remaining, and again when your time to speak is up.
Hello, my name is Flor Ramos. I live in Newbury Park in the Conejo Creek condominiums. A question I have for the parking permits is with the parking permits, physical ones, it was easy to change it car to car if we have 2 vehicles, like me and my husband both have vehicles, so we could park on the street. Could we change them like every other week online, or would it like lock us out. And also, it is a huge issue with parking. It's very, very hard often to find parking. Families have lots of cars and big vehicles that shouldn't be allowed to park on the street. And that would be all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Fleur.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramos. Can we have the next speaker? Who is it Blanca Melgar? Okay, Ms. Melgar, if you want to go up to the podium there.
Ms. Blanca, I'm going to just explain how the timer works, okay? So when your time to speak starts, you'll see the green.
Oh, okay.
When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light will come on.
Okay.
And when the red light comes on, your time to speak is up, okay? And then just go ahead and state your name and residence for the record before you start. Okay?
The green?
Ready?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
Mi pregunta es qué es las reglas que van a poner en el distrito sobre los parking, porque habemos muchos que estamos batallando con los parking. Sorry.
I'm going to get a translator really quick.
Oh. Sorry. Pensé que me iban a poner uno en español. I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay. La pregunta es que si qué vamos a hacer, como por lo menos yo tengo 2 carros. Entonces, si tengo 3 carros, por lo menos yo me quiero parquear afuera, o si tengo 4, ¿cómo le voy a hacer por si tengo que poner las 4, como decir, las 4? No, el permiso es un sticker. Ya. Si por lo menos tengo un parqueadero y me quiero parquear afuera.
Sí, usted tiene que cambiar el sticker
Sí,
a cada carro.
Pero a veces no hay parqueaderos. Es el problema que estamos pasando ahí en donde vivimos. Porque llegamos, por lo menos hay personas, yo no trabajo, pero hay personas que no es justo, que llegan tarde de su trabajo y no hayan parqueadero para parquearse. Y hay personas que dejan como así, de distancia, y no es justo, porque a veces hay personas que dejan el carro, no le importa si la gente anda batallando, buscando un parqueadero, y ahí lo deja toda la noche y no le importa si las demás gentes andan batallando y no mueven los carros como debe de ser. Lo que queremos es algo que tengan un espacio más o menos de cada carro y que todos tengamos el derecho de parquear. Okay.
Okay. So she was stating that she has multiple cars, so she wants to know how she would be able to park her other cars if she decides to park outside on the street. Does she have to keep switching the sticker to each vehicle that she's going to be parking onto the street? And then she is also stating that there's a lot of residents that are parking on the street, and they're leaving large gaps, and it makes it hard for the others to find parking once they come home from work.
Okay,
Thank you, Lola.
thank you, Ms. Melgar. Does the staff have any response to the speaker's comments?
Okay, if we're ready to respond to the question, I think both speakers had a question about whether or not they can have multiple cars, or within the database. And the way the program would work is that you would have an online account with the city where you would register the vehicle license plate of the vehicle that's going to be parked on the street, and you can change it at any time, depending on whether it's your car, you have maybe a guest, or maybe you have a visitor parked on the street, so it makes it that much easier. So you don't have to exchange a hang tag from vehicle to vehicle. You won't lose that hang tag, or you no longer have to worry about it getting damaged. You just go online into your account and specify what the plate number of the vehicle that's going to be parked on the street, and you could change it instantly, and that information is uploaded into the police department's database, so they know whether or not that vehicle that's parked during enforcement hours is permitted.
What about the second point about, she said that there's people that are parking and leaving large gaps? Eso es lo que dijo, ¿verdad, señora? Que hay personas que dejan bastante espacio entre carros y no hay suficiente espacio para poder parquear. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 So there's an issue sometimes with neighbors that they'll park and then they'll leave large spaces, but then they won't allow for people to share in that space, and so then they won't move. So I don't know if that's necessarily within this jurisdiction or if it's more of a law enforcement issue.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that type of issue will be corrected by what we're trying to do with this ordinance update. The ordinance is not intended to address sort of some of the issues that, in terms of parking behavior, the way people leave their vehicle on the street. What we're trying to do is help improve the efficiency of the current permit parking program, and then the manner in which people are leaving their vehicles in the street, that's a separate issue. I mean, we can try to address that. One option would be working with the association, the homeowners association, and determine, do they want us to mark that the streets with specific parking spaces.
Like we did on Thousand Oaks Boulevard.
Yeah, it's marked on Thousand Oaks Boulevard. The issue with that is that there's a specific state requirement. We follow the California Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, so that if we're going to mark the street with parking spaces, they have to be a certain distance apart, usually about 20 feet. But we know that the average vehicle, passenger vehicle, is shorter, roughly about anywhere from 12 to 15 feet in length. So you might be losing parking spaces by marking a roadway. Mm-hmm. So that's something to consider. But we can look at that separately with the homeowners association.
Señora, hay una asociación en su vecindad que uno puede reclamar que la vecina está haciendo eso, porque lo que estamos hablando ahorita solo es los permisos, no necesariamente cómo están parqueando los vecinos. Oh. So she's saying that there are neighbors that have multiple stickers, and some up to 6.
Okay, yeah, that's. We're aware that in this particular neighborhood, each home is limited to one parking permit. And we're aware that there are people who are, coming to to the city and claiming they've lost their permit. So it ends up happening is some of these people have multiple permits, or what they do is they duplicate their permit. They go and find a location that maybe a print shop that can create a very nice duplicate of the parking permit that they have. So there's counterfeit permits out there. So what we're looking to do with this digital system is that by going with this license plate system, it eliminates counterfeiting permits, or it eliminates the issue of a lost permit.
So I don't want to violate parliamentary procedures. Should I continue to?
We already have. So many different ways. So I do want to kind of regain some order here, because there's conversations that are being had that the rest of the commissioners don't understand. We're not Spanish speakers. Staff does not understand. I want to really rely on the translator. That's her function and that's her role. And so where we are in the process, thank you very much. Where we are in the agenda right now is we have heard the reports. We have heard from the speakers. We have more speakers. So if we could call the rest of the speakers, and then we can continue on with our discussion. Okay. We have a third speaker, and it's Carlos. Does Carlos need a translator? Oh, Carlos, can I? What's your last name? Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Can I speak? Yeah, I have a question. How many cars we can have for each unit?
So that would be a question for staff. If staff, you want to respond?
Like she was saying before, that people have like 6 cars in one unit, and that's not fair. It's not fair because, and it's and like she was saying that we come here to pay before the COVID $8 every year, and I asked them how these people can get so many stickers. If I come here and I say I lost my sticker, you give me one, I pay $8, and fine. That's the problem we have. Also, it's very dangerous. We don't have so far any accident. In the corners, people parking right there. You have to come halfway in the street to see if nobody's coming around. That I don't understand. It's terrible.
Are there? Well, let me. Are you finished?
No.
Okay.
I have more time.
Okay. Keep going.
And see, that's really, really very dangerous. They park in the curb. It's hard to see when you're going out. That's one thing. And like you were saying, people I know people at least have 6 cars. They parking. When they go to work, they move it and put another one to cover the space. You know, and I was talking to a policeman, and he say he give me the easy answer. Yeah, people, you can fight over here for the parking, but they don't wanna you go parking. Oh, sorry, to the Ralph parking, you know, because most people sometimes they go and parking over there at night. So what does that mean? They don't care about us. They care about the corporation. And also, Engine have, I don't know how to call that street. They have a sideline. And we have a lot of accidents going out to Hillcrest. And it's no sign. You have to be careful. It's very dangerous. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about. We need a sign over there, light sign. really, because engine is easy. It's finished. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
no. Thank you very much for your comments. I think we have a few more, or at least one more speaker. Okay, one more speaker, and it is. Is it Freddie? Freddie Diaz? Oh, Mr. Diaz, please take the podium. We'll turn the microphone on for you. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Hi. I just have a few questions. And my first question is, I would like to know if the city can mark like the parking spot with a number in our street, because like Carlos say, I had it in a lot of issues. I used to work like nighttime, and when I got back from work, I couldn't find no parking in the streets, and it was very hard. One day I spoke to a police officer, and they told me, and what they told me is, if you see this issue, this problem, just call us. But you know, I'm not gonna call the police every time. I mean that was like after 2 p.m., 2 a.m. Sorry. So I just want to suggest maybe they can mark all the streets, and every unit can have their number. I don't know if it is possible. And this is the only question that I have.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your question, Mr. Diaz. What we'll do now is we'll turn to Mr. Mashiko and Mr. Haydari and ask if you have any responses to the speaker's comments that we've received here on this issue.
Okay, yeah, I think the question was asked, you know, how many permits does each unit have? And that neighborhood, Conejo Creek, each unit was approved for one parking permit only. I believe the idea was to try to control the number of vehicles per unit because there's a limited amount of curb space in that neighborhood. And so I mentioned earlier there's some issues going on that we're aware of where there's duplicate permits, counterfeit permits, and also each permit is individually numbered. So when there's permits out there that are, what we do is when someone claims that a permit is lost, we void out the serial number on that permit, and we report those to the police department. It becomes very difficult for the police to track, you know, which one is a valid permit, which one is not. And so with this digital system based on license plate, that should avoid that issue. So when the police are out there, they don't have to read a hang tag with a number on it and determine whether or not it's valid or not. They just read a plate number with a scanner, and then they'll have updated real-time information to determine is that plate registered in the system. And that would avoid, you know, a person having multiple permits because it's not based on hang tags anymore. And also the second issue is, or the request was, can we mark the spaces out in that neighborhood? Again, I mentioned earlier, that's a bigger question with the HOA. Is that, you know, something that they can request of the city? We would consider it. However, there's a possibility that you may have fewer spaces to park because each space has to be a certain distance long, and so you may lose some parking. And also, we cannot put a number on each space. All the streets out there are public streets, so we can't assign a space to any of the units out in that neighborhood.
Does the city have the authority to tow away any like counterfeit permits or anything like that on the street to clear up space?
We currently don't tow or impound vehicles for expired permits. Back me up if I'm wrong, but the permit system's kind of been broken for a couple of years. It's our ability to enforce down to the specific permit number was lost Is that fair to say? It was lost a few years ago. So when we do parking enforcement in Conejo Creek, which we conduct once a month with a team of 2 on overtime, we just look for the permit. The numbers are not really trackable online at 2 in the morning. For instance, I would have to call the city during working hours and track down a permit number. So we accept all permits at night when we do, and we understand. Trust me, I'm the administrator for Passport. I understand there's a fair amount of permit sharing, duplicate permits, and displaying of old expired permits. Also at night is our main enforcement night. Most windows are fogged up, and you can see a permit, but you can't read the individual number. It's kind of hard to at night, so that's another
It sounds
roadblock.
like the permit doesn't really matter then, right? Which is kind of a problem because everyone wants to park. And if people don't follow the rules, and it sounds like there are no rules because there's no enforcement, right? Is it a ticketing offense?
Oh, there's absolute enforcement. That's our highest concentration
Right.
ticket area in the city of Thousand Oaks.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is
but
ticketing.
not enough. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically on an enforcement night of overtime, 2 parking employees will write 80 to 100 tickets at the one night. So we conduct that frequently. But like I said, if there's tag sharing or duplication of tags, we can't verify that at 2 in the morning, and the system becomes hard to enforce sometimes outside of a.
Yeah, so just piggybacking on that, so modernizing the system to this, more accurate methodology will help eliminate opportunities for any of this other,
Absolutely.
duplications.
With the program, I noticed when I was studying it in the packet, there's visitor permitting as well. Does it apply to this location?
At this location, there's only space basically for 1 vehicle per unit. So if they have visitors, they can allow that vehicle. Like Jim mentioned earlier, they can go online and switch their permit to that visitor permit. But they don't. There isn't no capacity in that neighborhood to have additional visitor parking. These units have garages, and so like the curbside parking is not intended to be the primary parking for the neighborhood. It's like, but it was constructed with approximately 1 curbside length for 1 street parking per unit.
And then one last thing about this particular neighborhood, the enforcement hours are 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Overnight parking. During the day, there's probably fewer cars. People are leaving. They go to work. But at night,
delivery trucks
that's generally the time at which parking is really an issue. So that's why the overnight parking restriction was implemented here.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mashiko. Commissioner Guerra just raised a good point, which is that there may be some people who are here tonight who do not understand the discussion completely. And I was just wondering if we could have Madam Translator translate some of the more salient points, which is that the city is aware of the duplicate and counterfeit placard issue, and that the very agendized item that we're talking about with the electronic permits is really going to go a long way in eliminating that problem, so that at least they understand that the city is aware and the city that this item is designed to cure that problem.
Están diciendo que lo que va a pasar es que ya todo va a ser en línea. Entonces, todo va a ser en línea. Entonces ya nomás van a poder usar un carro y dejarlo afuera. Y cada vez que quieran cambiar de carro, tienen que ir en línea y cambiar las placas y van a poder parquear ese carro afuera. Porque lo que está pasando ahorita es que dicen que van de 2 a 6 de la mañana, pero es muy difícil para leer lo que es las placas, y ahorita más están buscando que tengan el permiso y no pueden leer los números, entonces ellos no saben qué está pasando en ese aspecto. Entonces lo que va a hacer es todo en línea, y ya cuando registran ese carro y quieran cambiar de carro, van a ir en línea, o si tienen un visitante también van en línea y cambian las placas y así se pueden quedar ahí. Sí, va a ser un carro.
Okay, thank you very much. We do not have any more speakers. Is that correct, Ms. Vasquez?
No more speakers, Chair.
Okay, very well. So does the commission have any questions of staff? Okay, Vice Chair Selm.
Thank you. I'm just kind of realizing at this meeting that I don't, do we always have a translator? I guess is my first question for staff. Are we always set up to have a bilingual meeting? No. Okay, I think that's,
Yeah, this is not this is probably my first occurrence of needing to benefit from a translator during a meeting. So
Okay.
I don't have the full answer to that question.
well, I'm very glad that we had a translator. Thank you so much. But it seems like maybe a gap that we need to address. But that's not what my comment was on, but yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Guerra and Chair Emel for bringing that up. I just wanted to touch base on, the supplemental packet. There was one email that wasn't replied to by you, Mr. Mashiko, and thank you for replying to everyone else, but it was the last one, Mr. Lyons. And maybe I was just wondering if we could get some response to some of his concerns, and the one that I was specifically wanting to hear more about was the safety of this system and like the potential for leaking information or just any kind of security concerns. And sorry to put you on the spot, but that's the first one. And then if you have any other thoughts on his comments.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can't really speak to how the data is protected, but the firm that we were speaking to is Passport. They're a nationwide company that's performing this function for other agencies throughout the entire nation. So I would imagine they have some protocol in place to protect their data. I can't speak to exactly what those protocols are, but I mean, that's something that we can check up on and follow up on if this moves forward.
Yeah, I mean, Passport's currently being used for other functions. I don't know if you want to briefly touch on what that is, or it's an existing tool that the police department and city are, satisfied with as it currently stands.
We started about 18 months ago with Passport. Pretty happy with it. It streamlined the process for not only writing citations, it sped up the process for writing citations in the field, but it also threw pictures in there, real-time information, GPS locations, and I'm the administrator for it, so I do all the appeals for parking tickets. And it completely cut down my workload for appeals, and it also gave me a lot more information. So it also gave me an email reply for appeals. I'm happy with Passport. We use it for a lot. This would be expanding it a little bit. I don't see any reason not to. It's pretty happy with what we had because we left the paper world and we went digital, and this was our kind of foray into the digital world for organizing everything parking and traffic related when it comes to not only municipal codes but also vehicle codes we're used to.
And if I could just add to that too, these are vehicles that are in the public roadway or public right of way. These license plates are, I mean, a passerby just walking by can see the license plates. This is not some, confidential information or anything, not necessarily. It's so.
So, and I have to address your question. Passport right now, as we use it, has no interface with a law enforcement or state DOJ database. So right now we don't use it in that capacity. I can't put a plate in and I get a search history from Cal DOJ or something. It doesn't work like that.
Thank you for answering that. And is DOJ or anyone else requesting that information? Thank you.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Weichel.
Yes, Blanca. So, in Blanca's case, she has 4 cars, 3 or 4 cars, some for work. 3 cars. Okay. That digital permit, it's easy to transfer in moments, right? So it doesn't matter which car she'd be driving, and it's very convenient, right? So.
Yeah. So for instance, if somebody has, one car in their garage and they usually, or I don't know the specifics, and one on the street, but they need to reverse them somehow, or if you have a loaner car, your car's in the shop or something like that. If you have a rental or something for a week, yeah, as Jim mentioned earlier, they don't have to come during business hours, come to City Hall and, wait in line and do that type of permit transfer anymore. They can, once they have their account from initially setting up their first permit, they can go in and just change the vehicle.
Got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the issues are the current system is not working well, and that's what we're trying to do is make a new system that is controls the situation better. Yeah, yeah.
So let me ask a there was a question that was raised by Ms. Ramos, our virtual speaker, and I think her question was, is there any restriction on, switching the permit between cars? Is there going to be any like limitations, or is it going to default her or like kick her out of the system or something like that? Is it pretty much at will? You can change and assign the permit to whichever car you want it to be assigned to?
Yes, that's our understanding. I mean, you create your account, username and password. Once you're in, you can go in, every 15 minutes if you wanted to change whatever vehicle is going to be parked on that street. So again, those are some of the things that we'll talk to Passport about, some of the concerns and issues that were brought up this evening, and make sure that we can get around those issues.
And just to clarify, this is not going to be a hybrid system. You're not envisioning a hybrid system where people who want to keep their placards can keep their placards, and then others who want to move over or transition to the digital permitting system can do that. This is going to be a complete 360-degree transition to electronic permits.
That's correct. No more placards, no more hang tags, nothing to lose. And for those who don't want to create a digital account, you can still come to City Hall, and we'll have staff here that will enter the information for you. So it will be as if the physical permit process works. I mean, there's still the walk-up service is still provided if needed.
But if there are people who currently hold the paper placards or permits, and they do not want their information maintained in this electronic system, there is no alternative.
That is correct. Yeah, they would need to. Those particular people will then need to, park in their garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Guerra, you have a question?
Yes. First of all, I apologize if I jumped in to do the translation. Old habits die hard, and that's exactly what I've been trained to do. So apologize. We have a wonderful translator here. So how long will it take do you anticipate, when is the start date for the transition to digital? And then when will the enforcement come around so that they're going from the placard to the digital?
Yeah, so our next step after tonight is to take this item to City Council, because it's a city ordinance update. They have to be the ones that sign off on that. We're planning to do that next month. And then over the summer, we're hoping to implement the program with a sign-up window of either July or August, with a start date somewhere there near the end of the summer, either August 1st or September 1st. And then annually thereafter, it'll be a renewal of August 1st every year, I believe.
Could I ask that the translator mention that this will be going to City Council, so that if they want to go to City Council to talk about some of their issues, that might be the place to go to as well?
Sure, yeah. If you could just mention that this same item will be going to City Council next month to get approval. But it's the same topics we discussed tonight, so, they don't need to come if they've already been heard.
And could we reiterate that it'll be in July that it'll go into effect, right?
It'd be either August 1st or September 1st, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have any further questions on this issue for staff? Okay, Commissioner Weichel.
We're talking about this specific instance, but it is citywide, as you mentioned. You're looking for a 15% increase. There's 800 permits right now. Each one of these permits could have up to 5 visitor passes, I believe. Is that what I read in the report? Could we clarify that, just so I understand it?
Yeah, there's 5 different districts, as Jim has shown earlier. This particular one with the residents tonight only has 1 permit per address. The other ones, which are not as high of a density and they have more curbside parking, those are the ones that have either up to 3 or 5 permits per address.
Got it. I mean, that seems like a pretty significant.
Yeah, I think 3 is the proposed new number. Yeah,
because you're talking about potentially thousands of cars, right? I mean, so how does that factor into new development and some of these other things coming up? I mean,
well, these are existing neighborhoods that you can show the image again, but these are not anywhere near the redevelopment areas along Thousand Oaks Boulevard, et cetera. They're none of them are near Thousand Oaks Boulevard or some of the other redevelopment areas of the city.
and primary use on the other districts is school, medical center.
Yes, either hospital or school or hikers open space area where the neighborhood was getting an outside, residents or others coming into the neighborhood, non-locals coming and parking on their streets.
Okay.
So it was kind of somewhat of a different function than the particular one tonight we're talking about.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Vice Chair Selm.
Thank you. Regarding Spanish translation, is there any additional outreach that staff's going to be conducting? Because it seems like a forum where people can ask questions. My concern is when folks are talking out here, they're not on a mic, and so people online can't hear you, right? Isn't that how that works? So a forum where maybe city council is the place, but is there another place where we can have a translator and you can teach people also how to do this, right? Because it's going to be new, how to get on the website and how to transfer the tag and is there any more outreach that's going to be done?
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of outreach planned. We have with our communications team, and especially I think with this the Conejo Creek neighborhood, we'll work with the HOA to make sure the word gets spread to them, and possibly use bilingual outreach as well in that, at least for that neighborhood.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. I have one more quick question. Totally nothing we've talked about yet, but I saw the minor adjustments to boundaries, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about why that's in there and what that looks like.
Yeah, so each neighborhood right now has a current boundary that was established, not in this ordinance, but in specific individual resolutions that establish those particular preferential parking areas. So what that would allow is, let's say there's because of the parking restrictions in one neighborhood, maybe an adjacent street now starts getting those same visitors, or say high school students start, as patterns change and the impacts start to morph a little bit, to start to impact adjacent streets. We want to be able to accommodate that, not have to go to city council each time for one of those things and have a big hearing just to expand the zones a little bit.
That's good to hear, because that you just raised a thought in my mind, which is if you're reducing some of those illegal permittees potentially by correcting this, then you could have overflow. And so I'm glad to hear that y'all were thinking about that. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for staff? Commissioner Guerra?
Sorry. To go along with what Commissioner Selm was saying, I'm wondering if there would be follow-up since there's a transition point to digital, if there would be a follow-up to find out whether this is actually working and potentially eliminating some of this problem with, fraud.
Yeah, we can definitely reach out. We'll probably have to work with this Conejo Creek neighborhood, the HOA, probably work with them to find out, what the feedback is, and work with them in you know, if there's any fine tuning adjustments that must be made, you know, that's something we can work on.
Thank you so much, and thank you for addressing this issue. I had no idea that this was going on in these neighborhoods. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming and voicing your opinion. It really made a difference.
It certainly does. I mean, the conversation is much more lively when you have more people to have it with. So thank you very much for coming. Now I'm going to close this item for public comments, open it up to discussion among the commissioners, if there is anything for us to discuss at this point. Any further comments on this issue?
I'd just preferably like to see a follow-up on this to see how the program is doing with the transition to digital. I mean, you work hard, you deserve a parking spot. I mean, there's nothing worse than coming home and having to spend 20 more minutes waiting for a spot or driving around, right? Yeah.
Really? I was serious. I go.
Yeah, and I really do think that you know, we'll revisit this and see where we're at. Hopefully, it helps.
Yeah, I had no idea that this was an issue. There's a complete universe of things going on in the city that I'm completely foreign to me. So I do just have one question for city staff, which is, was the impetus for wanting to transition to an electronic permitting system some of what we're hearing tonight about no parking spaces and people having counterfeit placards, and was that on the radar?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. This is we were aware of the issues going on in this neighborhood. It was difficult from day one when this program got implemented in the neighborhood, when we started discovering all these issues popping up, and for years it persisted. But now that we're in the digital age, we finally have a tool that can help us sort of control the issue. It may not fix everything, but it will help bring things more into control.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's probably long overdue, but I mean, I commend the city staff for doing something about it, because otherwise this situation can get chaotic. I mean, it just could actually turn violent. I mean, you're talking about people coming home from long days of work, they can't park their car, and you know, people are hogging spaces or not, you know, parking their cars appropriately, and it's just very, very unsettling. But I appreciate all the comments tonight. Thank you for the city staff for the report and for all of your responses to the inquiries. Anything else for us to talk about on this item?
I agree with the comment that we should have a follow-up, maybe since this is a transition period, that the commission, if staff could have a follow-up in maybe 6 months, 8 months, just so that we know how things are running.
Okay, so I
would like to say one final thing.
Sure.
If possible. This is pointed to the city, but I'd like you to listen. You know, how this will be changed is people like you coming back and reporting, right? So come back, tell us how we're doing, and see how we could fix it, right?
All right, very good point. So so this was an information item. Obviously, I think we've received a lot of information on this. It's completely new to the commission as far as I can recall. So there's no recommendation needed from us. I think we've given our input, no vote required here. So with that, we can move on to item number 7, which is the status report of prior traffic commission recommendations. And does staff have any status reports for us?
Just the one quick item where the ATP, at least it was a draft back in February that you guys heard. It went to City Council and it was fully adopted on March 24th. So we have a brand new updated ATP.
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you for that, Mr. Mashiko. Item number 8, commission referrals. There are none. Item number 9, our work program and commission schedule. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff regarding work schedule? I mean, we're dark in August, aren't we? So,
That's correct.
do we have anything in the next 3 months?
Yeah, I don't, if you look on for the work program, there's really nothing pressing or urgent. But there is an item on the, under number 11 to possibly cancel the next meeting in May and come back in June. And I'm sure we'll come up with some issues or at least some informational items to discuss.
Okay. All right, so we'll move ahead then to item number 11, which is our future meetings. And there is a request that we consider cancellation of our meeting in May. Anybody have any strong opposition or objection to that? No. Okay. Do we need to take a vote on that? We need to? Okay. Do we need a motion? All
Preferable, right?
to have a motion. Better ask.
Is that just an informational item that?
No, they're talking about the potentially
will be-
canceling the May meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
But has staff determined that it needs to be canceled at this point, or is this
At
just
this
letting
point,
them
yeah,
know?
there's no items to, yeah. So yeah, they can make them.
Yeah, you can vote to cancel it.
Yeah.
That would be fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Council. I think Vice Chair Selm has a question.
Yeah, I know that we talked before about the VMT like policy. Is that going to come to us sometime soon?
Yes, I believe that's on that list of the future agenda items. It's definitely something we're working towards now that the ATP is completed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I see that list of items.
It's the very last page,
Last page of the
absolute,
agenda. Oh man,
the back of the back.
of the tome.
Yeah. Fourth bulleted item.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a look.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that the commission cancel the regular traffic commission meeting scheduled for May 27, 2026, and that we resume with our June 24th, 2026 meeting in the Civic Arts Plaza boardroom. Ms. Vasquez, can you take the vote on that motion?
Yes. Okay. Chair Abel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Selm,
Yes.
Commissioner Guerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Weichel.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Commissioner Callahan is absent.
Does city staff notify Commissioner Callahan that we've canceled the meeting for May?
Yes, we will.
Okay. All right. Well, we're on now to item number 12, which is the adjournment. I want to thank everybody once again for coming out tonight. Thank you for all your comments, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.